Hello everyone, Pantoufleee here today for a new review concerning the VK100.01, the German Tier 8 heavy tank. So, what do you need to know about this tank? Many things. The first thing we're going to talk about is probably the armor. Concerning the armor, you have several points to talk about. Mainly, the tank is extremely well armored as long as you don't show the weak spots. You're gonna tell me, yeah, like every other tank's Pantoufleee. And you're right, but here it's a little bit different and I'm gonna explain to you why. You have to make a difference between the hull and the upper part of the tank, the turret. Because your hull, you need to angle it. It's important to angle it if you want to bounce things. For example, as you can see here, you have the huge weak spot which got weakened. I don't remember from which update this nerf was, because the tank armor was just unbelievable at some point, and Wargaming had to nerf the lower part of the hull to make it easier to penetrate, especially for tier 7s. So now this plate here is complete butter. Even if you angle like that, no, like this, people are gonna bounce, but if they shoot here, they're gonna penetrate. Now, for real, the main thing with the armor is as long as you hide this part, you're safe. Nobody's gonna go through here, nobody's gonna go through here if you angle a little bit. Of course, if you angle too much, they can penetrate, but if you manage to angle it properly, it shouldn't be a problem. Now, concerning the turret, it's a little bit different, because you have this, the turret shape is a little bit weird. You have this and this. As soon as you try to turn a little bit your turret, people are gonna penetrate this part, because it's not angled for them. So, I would advise for you to just stay in front of your opponent, looking at them when you are using this tank with this turret. Or at least, if you want, wiggle just a little bit the gun, but not that much. Because if you do it too much, they are going to be able to have shots here. Also, we can talk about the weak spot right there, which, as it's round, we don't really care about angling it. I mean, from both angles, it's going to be penetrable. So, in order to avoid being penetrated on the side of the turret, which is a clearly bigger weak spot than the actual cupola, you should try to angle the hull and not angle the turret. The turret stays straight in front of your opponent. That's what I do, and personally, it works well. Every time I do that, I'm successful with the VK100.01. That was it for the armor. I'm sorry, it's a little bit long on the armor, because I wanted to highlight the fact that you don't have to angle the turret, or else you're gonna get penetrated. Now let's talk about the other things you have to know. First, the mobility. You all know that when a German tank, especially a German tank, is heavy, it has a really bad mobility. Here, it's not an exception to the rule. You are slow as fuck, 20 kilometers per hour. And a really bad traverse speed of around 30 degrees seconds. So yeah, clearly it's not the main point, the main characteristic of the tank. It's clearly not a pro. Now, if we talk a little bit about the gun, it's a little bit more interesting, because even if the gun dispersion really sucks, you have 0.38, which is horrible, and a really bad reload time of 14.5 seconds, you have a huge alpha damage and a really good penetration. Therefore, if you manage to hit your target, you're gonna do a lot of damage and a lot, and you're maybe sure not to bounce anything. Mainly, also, we can talk about the gun depression, which is good, 8 degrees of gun depression, but that's the least you can do for a tank that tall, because even if you have 8 degrees of gun depression, you're not gonna feel like you have this. That's just because the tank is tall. I mean, if they put 3 degrees only on this big-ass turret, the tank would not be able to hit everything getting close to him due to the lack of gun depression. So overall, great armor, bad mobility, and average gun. It really depends on your RNG because of the gun dispersion. Nothing else to say, let's jump directly into the replay and see what we can do with this tank. We have the pleasure of watching Angelo Loves Pay to Win, what is a nice nickname by the way, and he's driving his VK. Where is he going? He's going straight into the town. If we analyze real quick the matchup, you can see that he's top tier, and that's an extremely good news for us, because mainly when with this tank you manage to be top tier, you're not impenetrable, but bouncing things is gonna be way easier than it is for tier 9s. Also, maybe something to add is that he went in the town, and just look at the mobility of the tank. It's extremely slow. All the enemy team already advanced to pretty aggressive positions, such as the cap circle, and yet our friend Angelo is still nearby the cap circle, his own spawn, sorry. He takes ages to be able to take an advanced position. It took him nearly 1 freaking minute just to join the fight. And oh boy, is it frustrating when you're used to highly aggressive playstyle, because you can play aggressively with this tank, but don't expect to be there on time to help your team if they're being pushed and you're on the other side of the map. And that's maybe the main problem I have with the VK100.01P, even if I think it's still a nice tank. But yeah, it can be frustrating sometimes. So as you can see, that's exactly what is happening. The enemy team is rushing all his teammates that stay nearby the spawn. And Angelo is trying to come back to help them, but he's gonna struggle thanks to its bad mobility. And here you're gonna see something extremely interesting concerning the VK. When you're facing a tank that is as high as you are, such as it's the case for example for this M6 XP, your armor becomes irrelevant thanks to the huge cupola you carry on the top of your turret. That's the main weak spot of the tank. Everybody knows it's a weak spot. Everybody is trying to get it, and if the tank is as high as you are, they are gonna penetrate that 100% sure. That's the problem with this tank. But if, let's face it, if it didn't have this huge cupola, it would be a complete broken tank, because as soon as you're in all down, you would be nearly impenetrable. But Angelo now is trying something a little bit different. Instead of coming back in the town where it could have been like a real threat to its opponent, because going in town with this kind of tank is one of the best things to do, he decided to expose himself in order to be able to probably destroy some tanks instead of focusing on the others that are full HP. He goes for the M6 XP. Now he's rushing through in order to get that IS-3. It shouldn't be hard for him to destroy the guy. The guy didn't even manage to put him a shot. He's now in a 1 versus 3 situation, and that's a really bad situation concerning Angelo, because this tank is extremely weak against mediums that can easily circle you, and oh boy, he's facing 2 mediums. So let's see how medium tank are gonna perform against the VK. As long as he stays here in the reach line, he can try to bounce shots, and he can try to get some shots done on the FCM. That's exactly what is gonna happen. The FCM doesn't seem to want to push, which is a good thing for Angelo. It's a blessing. It will allow him to simply destroy the FCM without really fearing anything else. But it was before the T-32 started to circle actively Angelo, so he needs to get rid of the FCM as fast as possible and come back on either the P-44 Pantera or the T-32. The P-44 Pantera didn't move, and Angelo did a great thing here by not going on the Pantera but rather going on the T-32. Let's kill first the active player rather than the bots or AFK, which seems to be the case of the P-44 Pantera. And now he's in a really bad situation. Let me explain to you why. I already talked about the cupola, and I told you the cupola is one of the biggest weak spots of this tank. And the T-32 is gonna use it again and again and again. Angelo is quite lucky that the T-32 is bouncing a lot of shells in the cupola, because if he put some gold shells, it would have been over for Angelo for a long time. But here he's playing his tank right. He angles the hull and he stays straight in front of his opponent with the turret. That's exactly what you want to do. It allows him to face-hug the T-32, and when you're face-hugging, as I already said, a tank that is not as high as you are, it's impossible for them to destroy your cupola, and if it's impossible for them to get your weak spot, it's an easy win for you. Unfortunately, it seems like the P-44 Pantera is coming back into the game. He needs to focus first the T-32, and Angelo is doing the exact right thing. Instead of focusing on the P-44 Pantera, he get a shot on the T-32, trying to track him in order to ram it after it works. T-32 is out, managing to get from a 1 versus 3 to a 1 versus 1. Now he only has to deal with the P-44 Pantera, which doesn't seem to be a threat regarding how he's playing his tank. But Angelo needs to be careful anyway, because the Pantera can still kill him. Here, if I was him, I would have tried maybe an HE on the side of the P44 Pantera because that's where Amarak is located, so it will increase your chances of Amaraking the tank, but it chose to go for the regular AP. It's not a problem, the tank is EV enough to just with a little kiss break the tracks of the P44 Pantera, preventing him to be able to circle, so the P44 Pantera stays in front of the VK, he can't do anything, the VK destroy it, boom, win, 1 versus 3, get wrecked. 5.7 thousand damage. An incredible game, Angelo. You definitely deserve to win this. You played really correctly. Thank you for sending me this replay. Hope you enjoyed, guys. If that's the case, feel free to subscribe, like, and share. And I'm gonna see you soon, probably for a new review or maybe a stream.